What if I told you that Chevrolet once built an engine so advanced, so far ahead of its time, that General Motors executives themselves tried to bury it? An engine so feared by racers that it earned the nickname the Widowmaker. A machine so revolutionary that Ford couldn't match it, and so controversial that even Chevrolet's own engineers risked their careers to keep it alive. The year was 1957. While America was dancing to rock and roll and filling drive-in theaters, behind closed doors at Chevrolet, a mechanical revolution was taking shape, one that would forever change the future of high-performance engines. This is the story of the legendary 283 fuel-injected V8, the very first production engine to officially achieve the magic benchmark of 1 horsepower per cubic inch, something that many engineers at the time believed was impossible. Picture the mid-1950s. Elvis ruled the radio, chrome-filled cars lined up at diners, and Detroit's automakers were locked in an invisible arms race, the horsepower war. Each company wanted to build the fastest, most powerful car, the kind that would capture the imagination of young drivers and bring prestige to the brand. Ford was showcasing its Y-block V8. Chrysler boasted about its mighty Hemi, and Chevrolet, with its relatively modest 265 cubic inch small block V8 introduced in 1955, it looked like the underdog. Nobody expected Chevrolet to win this war. Nobody except a small group of rebellious engineers led by a visionary named Zora Arkus Duntov, the man who would ultimately transform the Corvette from a pretty convertible into a world-class performance machine. At the time, specific output, horsepower per cubic inch, was considered the holy grail of automotive engineering. Reaching 1 horsepower per cubic inch in a production engine was thought to be as unlikely as breaking the sound barrier. Yet Chevrolet managed to do it. Working in secret corners of the engineering department, Chevrolet's team reworked the small block design. They increased the bore from 3.75 to 3.875 inches, while keeping the 3.00-inch stroke. The result was a perfectly balanced 283 cubic inch displacement. But the real breakthrough wasn't in displacement, it was in fuel delivery. Instead of relying on carburetors, Chevrolet introduced something that seemed like science fiction at the time: mechanical fuel injection. Developed in partnership with the Rochester Products Division, the Rochester Ramjet fuel injection system delivered fuel directly into each intake port, controlled by a mechanical distributor. It was complex, expensive, and unlike anything the average car buyer had ever seen. But it was also decades ahead of its time. Where carburetors mixed air and fuel in bulk before sending it to the cylinders, this system ensured precise fuel metering, better atomization, and lightning-fast throttle response. The result? A small block V8 producing 283 horsepower from 283 cubic inches. 1 horsepower per cubic inch. The barrier had been shattered. Suddenly, the so-called little brother of Detroit had accomplished what many thought was impossible, and it did so using 1950s technology: cast iron blocks, iron heads, and no computer assistance, just brilliant engineering. The numbers alone proved how remarkable it was. With 283 horsepower at 6,200 RPM and 290 pound-feet of torque at 4,400 RPM, the fuel-injected 283 wasn't just strong for its era, it rivaled performance figures that many modern engines would still respect. And all of this came in an engine that weighed significantly less than Chrysler's Hemi or Ford's Y-block, giving Chevrolet a power-to-weight advantage. Yet behind this engineering triumph lurked controversy. Officially, Chevrolet advertised the 283 Fuelie as producing exactly 1 horsepower per cubic inch, no more, no less. But many racers and mechanics of the day swore that it actually produced more power than Chevrolet admitted. And that's where the story turns darker, because this engine wasn't just a performance milestone, it was a threat to the entire status quo of the American auto industry.
In today's money, the extra cost of Chevrolet's fuel-injected option would be like adding several $1,000s to a car purchase. But what really doomed the program wasn't just the high price, it was the subtle disinformation campaign. Dealers were quietly instructed to steer customers away from ordering the Fuelie, warning them about supposed reliability concerns and maintenance headaches. Some even told buyers the system was experimental and unproven, despite the fact that Chevrolet engineers had already tested it extensively. The results were predictable. Out of the 6,339 Corvettes built in 1957, only about 1,040 were equipped with the fuel-injected 283. That was a victory for GM's cautious executives, but a disappointment for enthusiasts who believed in innovation. Still, the 283 Fuelie refused to die quietly. While corporate leaders plotted in their offices, out on America's racetracks, a very different story was being written. In February 1957, a Corvette powered by the 283 Fuelie set a record at Daytona Beach, reaching 150.58 miles per hour, a milestone no American production car had ever achieved before. The news sent shockwaves through the industry. And though GM was officially barred from racing due to the AMA ban, private teams began running modified versions of the 283 in NASCAR and drag racing. Drivers like Buck Baker, Fireball Roberts, and Junior Johnson racked up victories with small block Chevys that seemed to outperform their official ratings. It was in drag racing, however, where the 283 truly made its mark. Lightweight, quick to rev, and easy to modify, it became the perfect quarter-mile weapon. Hot rodders soon discovered that with relatively simple upgrades, higher compression, bigger cams, better headers, the engine could easily push past 350 horsepower, an astonishing figure for its size in the late 1950s. Its reputation spread so widely that even Carroll Shelby, before his famous partnership with Ford, considered using the 283 in his early Cobra sports cars. Only GM's refusal to sell him engines pushed him toward Ford instead, a decision that changed racing history. This is also where the legend of the 283 Fuelie drifts into almost mythical territory. Years later, John Dolza, one of the lead engineers behind the Rochester Ramjet program, claimed that a more advanced version of the engine had been developed but never released. According to him, there was a prototype with aluminum cylinder heads, forged pistons, and an improved fuel injection system that made well over 315 horsepower. Executives at GM, he said, killed it for being too extreme. Other stories tell of a secret Project X, an experimental version of the small block with dual overhead camshafts inspired by European racing engines of the era. Allegedly, 3 prototypes were built before the project was abruptly canceled. What became of them is unknown. Some believe they were destroyed under GM orders, others whisper they were hidden away by sympathetic engineers, and may have ended up in private collections. What is certain is that when Zora Arkus Duntov was later developing the Corvette Grand Sport program in the 1960s, many of the same ideas mysteriously resurfaced. Coincidence? Probably not. By 1959, the Fuelie's glory days were already fading, not because it was outdated, but because of business decisions. The fuel injection option remained available, but fewer and fewer customers chose it. High cost combined with dealer misinformation kept sales low. By 1960, Chevrolet introduced the larger 327 cubic inch small block. With traditional carburetors, it could match the 283 Fuelie's output at a lower cost, making the innovative fuel injection system seem unnecessary. By 1965, GM officially discontinued the mechanical fuel injection option altogether. It would be more than 20 years before Chevrolet revived fuel injection, and by then the technology had evolved into something completely different, electronic rather than mechanical. The 283 Fuelie had been too far ahead of its time, too revolutionary for its own survival. Like many pioneers, it paid the price for being first. Today, a 1957 Corvette equipped with its original fuel-injected 283 is one of the most desirable collector cars in existence. At major auctions, these rare machines often sell for over $1 million, a testament to their rarity and their role in history. But the true legacy of the 283 Fuelie isn't just its market value. It lies in how it redefined American engine design. It proved that small, efficient engines could compete with and even surpass massive big blocks. It introduced fuel injection to the American public, and it set a benchmark for specific output, 1 horsepower per cubic inch, that would inspire engineers for decades. Every time you see a modern performance engine producing more than 1 horsepower per cubic inch, remember where it all began, with a small block Chevrolet in 1957. The 283 Fuelie wasn't just an engine, it was a statement. It showed that true innovation often comes from challenging the status quo, taking risks, and daring to attempt the impossible. Its story reminds us that the biggest obstacles to progress are rarely technical. They are political, economic, and rooted in fear of change. And perhaps that is the ultimate lesson of the 283 Fuelie. Excellence always finds a way to shine through, even when those in power try to hold it back.